so you have the same training. So I'm going to save money. I won't have to call in somebody from the outside to come in and train on these other various weapons. And I'll save on the cost of the ammunition also. So that's what I'm attempting to do. As far as, we sat down with the union, they had some issues with this, and they're 100% behind this article. We squared away all their issues. As far as it becoming mandatory, no, I cannot make them, force them. And what was your other question, Steve? So the bottom line here is, what I'm trying to do is get some consistency in my training and the weapons that they carry, and to save money in the long run. I'll save that $2,000 I have to spend to call in an expert. I have specially trained officers, Sergeant Jones, Officer Donnelly, and Officer Milani, who are specially trained to train the rest of my officers in the Glocks, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion? Well, we'll take Mr. Smith first and then Mr. Reitmeyer. Mr. Smith.
Thanks. I had a couple questions. Is it possible for the officers to carry their on-duty weapon, therefore we don't have to buy them an off-duty weapon? The other question is it a good idea for the town to be buying guns for people that the Attorney General has recently decided, since they don't have magazine disconnects or loaded chamber indicators and they melt at less than 400 degrees, that these are unsafe weapons for ordinary people to own? Thanks.
Chief?
I don't know about if the Attorney General has ruled on that, but most of the police departments around are carrying the Glocks. I can't imagine to be unsafe for the police officers.
Well, it's been in the news recently that the Attorney General just won his lawsuit making things on this list.
Well, I think that's a different issue, but anyway.
Well, I'm concerned about the liability of...
Well, the liability issue now is if we approve the off-duty weapons and they invoke their on-duty status and they're using their own weapons, there's a big liability there. And we have to train them with their own weapons. What I'm attempting to do is to train them with the same type of weapon. Limit the liability and have a cost saving in the long run.
Okay. Could they save their, could they carry their on-duty weapon?
Well, it won't be approved. If they use it, there's no liability with the town. The only ones I'm approving are the Glock 27s and their duty weapons.
They couldn't carry their duty weapon off-duty?
Yes, they could. But that's kind of, if you notice them, they're a 4-inch barrel. They carry more rounds. It's kind of bulky or something. The 27s is more concealable. And that's what we're trying to do.
Mr. Reitmeyer.
George Reitmeyer, Mead Road. A couple of questions, Chief. I was at that budget meeting, and as you know, I spoke in favor of this. But a couple of questions come up since then. I'm in favor of this due to the fact that an off-duty police officer could be recognized by some bad guy, and it protects his life. But also, I would expect and hope that an off-duty officer would come to my aid if necessary. But at that meeting, you stated that it is mandatory for the officers in North Reading to carry their weapons.
I thought I clarified that, and I clarified it with, I sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen. It's not mandatory. It's suggested that they carry these, that these are the only weapons that the town will approve. The town will approve when they're off duty.
Then another point then would be that if we buy these weapons, how do we know that the officers will all agree to carry them? I mean, I wouldn't want to be spending this money.
Well, if you know any of the fellows I get down there now, most of them carry weapons. So I'm sure if they're within the confines of North Reading, they're going to carry that weapon. As a matter of fact, they like the weapon. It was one of their suggestions a long time ago that we purchase these, and we tried other avenues to purchase these.
Well, with that assurance, I would vote in favor.
Thank you.
Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Chief, for your information. The Finance Committee does support this article, and we are glad to see that the Chief is taking toward a standardized weapon that is the same both on and off duty, and would encourage all the officers to use these weapons.
Mr. Pasquale.
Let me clarify. We would encourage you to carry them and never have to use them.
John Pasquale, Suavig.
Mr. Pasquale.
Chief, I favor the article, but I got to give you from the heart concern I have. I dare say I know 70% of the policemen in this town. I know them since they've been that high. They're now become fathers like I have. So my concern is, if we're going to buy these, there's a national movement. We got to put locks on these things. Because if they get in the house, please, I don't want to hear that some little kid in this town got a hold of his daddy's Glock, or God forbid he took it. It's happening in America. So I would advocate spend a little more and see we put locks on these things. We got to protect the kids too.
Well, John, I'm sure that all my officers think the same way. And just recently, I purchased locks for their on-duty weapons.
How about the new Glocks?
Well, if I get this approved, we'll purchase the locks for these.
Well, even if we have to put more money in,
I don't need any more money, sir.
We just saved 36. We can make an amendment to make sure the locks are on. I'll come back later.
I don't need this. I don't need the amendment. I can
Okay.
get the locks.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Diana
Ms.
Jenkins,
Jenkins.
226 Haverhill Street. When the officer leaves or retires, does the pistol return to the town as a town purchase, or does this become the private property of the officer?
No, ma'am. That becomes the town property. He has to turn it in.
Thank you.
Mr. Piero.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Chief, that's a good idea. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. That's good. We get more protection. See? Wonderful. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion is to appropriate by transfer from free cash, requires a simple majority vote. On the motion for $12,950. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Moderator, I move to reconsider Article 10, Line B, Fire Department, Purchase and Equip Command Vehicle.
Motion to
I'm
reconsider
sorry,
Article 10.
Article 13, excuse me.
Article,
I think I put
I move to reconsider Article 10, line.
Should be 13. Sorry.
Motion is to reconsider Article 13, line B, Fire Department Purchase and Equip Command Vehicle. Motion to reconsider requires a 2/3 vote. On the motion to reconsider, Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I don't mean to belabor the issue too much. What happens is the need for a new vehicle has not gone away, but additionally, it required a 2/3 vote because it was for bonding. So what I was looking to do, and we were about within 6 or 7 votes of acquiring this particular vehicle. I just wanted to make sure that everybody who was voting on this particular article understood that if you did not purchase this vehicle, there wasn't a dime to be saved in this year's budget. In other words, it was $36,000 which is to be bonded. The cost of the bonding was going to take place in the following fiscal year, so we haven't saved a dime for any other purpose. If you're looking to save money here in this particular area, there's no money available to be put into any other portion of the budget because it does not affect this year's budget. The bonding for it takes place in the following fiscal year. So if your vote was in favor of or not in favor of it, it was because of that. You're not succeeding in doing what you're looking to do. So I would ask again, we had almost a 2/3 vote in favor of this thing. We were within 5 or 6 votes of acquiring it. We need 2/3 for reconsideration. So again, we can still accomplish this. It does not save a dime for this current year's budget, which is what some of you may be looking to accomplish. It's not going to accomplish that. Any of the bonded items is not accounted for dollars and cents wise in this particular year's budget. The bonding takes place this year, but starts getting funded the following fiscal year. So there's no savings that can be transferred into any other budget item in the budget for this particular operating budget that's before us. So I'd ask you to favorably reconsider this, look at the merits of the arguments, and for those of you who are opposed to the vehicle, then, don't listen to the argument here, but if you were opposing it because you thought it was going to free up some other cash, you're not going to accomplish that. So I'd ask you to reconsider it. It takes a 2/3 vote, and then vote favorably on it. Thank you.
Under our bylaws, the moderator is required to ask everybody to be seated. With the gentlemen who are lined up in the back of the hall, please find a seat someplace and be seated. On the motion to reconsider, is there any further discussion? Yeah, could we please have everybody be seated? Oh, you're the constable tonight? Okay. Very good. On the motion to reconsider, all those in favor of reconsideration, please raise your right hand, and would my tellers please go to work. Mr. Mosseri, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Reitmeyer. Mr. Reitmeyer.
20.
20. Mr. Mosseri. 22. 22. Mr. Jones. 39. 39. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. Mr. Reitmeyer. 9. 9. Mr. Jones. 18. 18. Mr. Mosseri. 45. 45. There are 81 votes in favor of reconsideration, 72 opposed. The motion fails to acquire the necessary 2/3 plurality. The motion is lost. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of maintaining and reconstructing the roadways within the town of North Reading.
Mr. Jones, Sr.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends. This is the only other money that we use for roads other than Chapter 90. Chapter 90 money has been shrinking by approximately 1/3 via state funds, so this becomes a little more important to maintain and patch, et cetera, our roads.
Board of Selectmen have a recommendation, Mr. Smith.
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Any further discussion, Mr. Sylvia? Could you use the microphone, please, Mr. Sylvia?
All I would like to do is to repeat the vote on that last vote we just about.
On the reconsideration? Yes. On the reconsideration, there were 81 votes in favor and 72 votes in opposition. The motion failed to achieve the required 2/3 majority. You're welcome. On the motion under item E of Article 13, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. This is $100,000 to be transferred from free cash, requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the purpose of replacing and equipping a 3/4-ton pickup truck for the use by the Department of Public Works, and that to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said sum.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation, Mr. Jones?
Finance Committee recommends, Mr. Moderator.
The Board of Selectmen have a recommendation, Mr. Smith?
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. O'Brien back there? Please speak very loudly.